A homeless mother of triplets stands before a millionaire's Ferrari on Christmas Eve. As he approached, he was shocked by what he saw. The biting December wind stung Claire's face as she trudged along Fifth Avenue. Her arms ached from carrying the precious weight of her sleeping triplets. Thomas, Marie, and Sophie, wrapped together in a single worn-out blanket, were all she had left in the world. Snow fell gently, covering the streets with a white mantle that cruelly contrasted with the luxurious Christmas decorations. Twinkling lights and golden wreaths adorned the windows of high-end boutiques, mocking Claire's misery. Each step was a battle against the cold and despair. A sudden flashback transported her 3 months into the past, the landlord's impassive face as he evicted her from the tiny apartment she could barely call home. "I'm sorry, but you're 3 months behind on rent." "I have to think about my business," he had said, without truly feeling sorry. Claire relived the sense of helplessness, the silent tears as she packed up the children that night, promising herself she would find a way forward. Another memory, the day she lost her job at the diner. "Necessary cuts," the manager had explained, avoiding her gaze. "You understand, right? With 3 mouths to feed?" The phrase hung in the air, laden with unspoken judgment. And then, the worst blow of all, Sophie, always the most fragile of the 3, contracting a stubborn pneumonia that refused to let go. The sleepless nights in the emergency room, the icy panic at seeing her daughter struggle to breathe, and the hospital bill that consumed her last savings. Claire blinked, returning to the present. Her eyes, blurred by exhaustion and unshed tears, focused on something that made her heart skip a beat. There, majestically parked in front of a luxury specialty store, was a red Ferrari. Not just any Ferrari, that Ferrari. She stopped abruptly, causing Thomas to whimper softly. The sight of the car transported her to another life, a time when she was young, full of dreams, and in love with a man who had promised her the world, a world that never materialized. Claire hesitated. Part of her wanted to turn around and run from that painful reminder of what could have been. But the weight in her arms, the icy wind and the cruel reality kept her rooted in place. Taking a deep breath, she approached the car, not knowing exactly what she hoped to achieve. That was when the store's door opened. Philippe stepped out, his arms loaded with elegantly wrapped bags and packages. His satisfied smile froze the instant his eyes met Claire's. Time seemed to stand still. 8 years of separation, hurt, broken dreams, and divergent paths condensed into that single look. Claire saw shock, disbelief, and then a flicker of something deeper in Philippe's eyes. For her part, she knew her own face betrayed a mixture of shame, despair, and a hint of something she refused to name. Philippe took a step toward her, his mouth opening to speak, when a sound shattered the spell of the moment. Sophie coughed, a harsh, painful sound that shook her small body and made Claire instinctively clutch the children tighter against her chest. "Claire?" Philippe's voice was a mixture of incredulity and concern. "My God, what happened?" She watched as slow, painful understanding spread across his face. The man she had once loved, perhaps still loved, in some hidden corner of her heart, looked at her as if he were seeing a ghost. In a way, that's exactly what she was, the ghost of a future that never came to be. Claire felt the weight of all her failures, all her sleepless nights, every skipped meal so her children could eat. She felt the exhaustion of months, years, fighting alone against a world seemingly determined to crush her. And at that moment, facing the man who represented everything she had lost, Claire did something she swore she would never do. She asked for help. "Philippe," her voice came out hoarse, almost a whisper. We need a place to stay tonight. Just tonight. Please." The words cost her more than any sum of money ever could. It was her pride, her last line of defense against a cruel world, shattering at her feet along with the falling snowflakes. Philippe looked at Claire, at the children in her arms, and then back at the bags full of expensive, unnecessary gifts. His face was a canvas of conflicting emotions: shock, confusion, guilt, and something that could be described as a nascent determination. He took a step forward, letting the bags fall onto the snow-covered sidewalk. "Claire," he said, his voice firm despite the evident turmoil in his eyes. "Come with me. Now." As Philippe opened the car door, inviting her to enter, Claire felt a dizzying mixture of relief and apprehension. What did this reunion mean? What consequences would this night bring for her and her children? The Ferrari purred softly, ready to depart. Claire looked at Philippe, at the sleeping children, and then at the cold, dark avenue behind her. With a sigh that carried the weight of years of struggle, she got into the car. The Christmas lights reflected on the windshield as they left Fifth Avenue behind. Claire didn't know where she was going, but she was certain of one thing: her life was about to change drastically. Once again, the Ferrari's gentle hum cut through the silence of the night as Philippe drove through the streets of New York. Claire, sitting in the passenger seat with the sleeping triplets in her lap, kept her eyes fixed on the window, avoiding Philippe's gaze. The tension in the car was almost palpable, an invisible barrier of unasked questions and unspoken words. Philippe opened his mouth several times as if to speak, but always hesitated, his fingers gripping the steering wheel tightly. What do you say to someone you haven't seen in 8 years, who reappears in your life in the most unexpected way possible? Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the Ferrari passed through the gates of an imposing estate. Claire couldn't contain a gasp of astonishment as the mansion appeared before them, its illuminated windows shining like beacons in the night. "Welcome to my home," Philippe said softly, breaking the silence for the first time since they'd gotten into the car. Claire only nodded, unable to find words. The distance between their realities had never felt so vast. They entered, and Claire was immediately enveloped by the warmth and luxury of the interior. Crystal chandeliers, Persian rugs, works of art that probably cost more than she had ever earned in her entire life. It was a world completely alien to her. "Let's settle the children first," Philippe suggested, guiding them upstairs. The guest room was larger than Claire's entire last apartment. She laid the triplets on the huge king-size bed, their small forms almost lost in the expanse of silk sheets. "They're beautiful," Philippe murmured, watching the children. Claire nodded, a lump forming in her throat. "Thank you," she whispered, carefully covering them. They went back downstairs to the library, a cozy room despite its size, with floor-to-ceiling shelves filled with books. Philippe poured 2 glasses of red wine, offering one to Claire. "I think we have a lot to talk about," he said, sitting down in a leather armchair. Claire took a sip of wine, letting its warmth calm her nerves. "Where do you want to start?" Philippe hesitated, then asked softly, "The triplets, are they—" "They're not yours, if that's what you're asking," Claire answered quickly. "They're 6 years old, born after we parted ways." The relief on Philippe's face was evident, soon replaced by curiosity. "Their father—" Claire sighed, setting down her glass. "He's not in the picture. Never was, actually. It was a mistake. I found out I was pregnant after he'd already left." Philippe nodded slowly, processing the information. "And these last years, how have you survived?" Claire finished with a bitter smile. "It hasn't been easy. I lost my job at the conservatory when the pregnancy became obvious. Since then, it's been a constant struggle. Temp jobs, late rents, medical bills." Her voice faltered. "But the triplets, they're everything to me. They're worth every sacrifice." Philippe looked at her with a mixture of admiration and guilt. "I'm so sorry, Claire. If I had known—" "You didn't know," she interrupted him. "How could you? I disappeared from your life, remember?" A heavy silence fell between them. Years of unanswered questions and unfulfilled what-ifs hung in the air. "And you?" Claire finally asked. "The last 8 years seem to have been generous to you." Philippe laughed without humor. "Financially, yes. Personally?" He made a vague gesture. "The company grew beyond expectations. But at the end of the day, I come home to an empty house." Claire studied him. The passionate young musician she'd known had transformed into a successful businessman, but his eyes still carried that spark of melancholy that had always intrigued her. "Why did you leave, Claire?" Philippe finally asked the question he'd been holding back. "One day we were planning our future. The next you just vanished." Claire closed her eyes, reliving that moment. The job offer in Los Angeles. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Philippe. A chance to really make a name for myself in the world of music. But why not tell me? Why leave without saying goodbye? I tried, Claire exclaimed, frustration tainting her voice. I called you that night, but your father answered. He said you were busy, that you'd realized our relationship was a mistake, that I should follow my own path. Philippe paled. My father? But I never knew of any call. He told me you had left to pursue your career, that you had decided I was a burden to your ambitions. They stared at each other, understanding slowly dawning, years of misunderstandings, broken hearts, all possibly based on a lie. My God, Philippe murmured, running his hands through his hair. All these years. Claire felt tears forming in her eyes. I thought you didn't care, that you discarded us so easily. And I thought you had chosen your career over me, that our love meant so little. The clock on the wall struck midnight, its sound echoing in the silent library. Claire and Philippe looked at each other, years of hurt and regret reflected in their eyes. And now, Claire asked softly, where does this leave us? Philippe sighed, looking out the window at the snowy night. Honestly, I don't know. There's so much to say, so much to understand. But it's late, and you and the children need rest. Claire nodded, feeling the weight of the years and revelations on her shoulders. As they got up to leave, Philippe gently touched her arm. Claire, he said, his voice laden with emotion, whatever happens from here, know that I'm glad you crossed my path again. She smiled sadly, echoing the sentiment with a nod. As she climbed the stairs to join her children, Claire couldn't help but think that, though many questions had been answered that night, many more had emerged. Once again, the future was a nebulous mystery before her. The first rays of sun filtered through the silk curtains as Claire opened her eyes, momentarily disoriented by the luxury surrounding her. The soft mattress beneath her body was a stark contrast to the park benches and makeshift shelters of recent months. For an instant, she thought she was dreaming. Then, the memories of the previous night flooded her mind like a torrent. The unexpected encounter with Philippe, the revelation about his father's interference, the painful truths shared in the library. Claire closed her eyes again, feeling the weight of 8 years of misunderstandings pressing on her chest. A child's laughter brought her back to reality. Sitting up abruptly, Claire saw Thomas and Marie playing on the plush rug, surrounded by more toys than she could ever have provided. Sophie, still pale but with bright eyes, watched her siblings from her spot on the king-size bed. "Mummy, look!" Thomas exclaimed, holding up a remote-controlled car. "Uncle Philippe brought it for us." Claire felt a lump in her throat. Uncle Philippe, she thought. How quickly children adapted, how easily they accepted kindness without questioning the years of absence or the complications of the past. "That's very kind of him," Claire managed to say, forcing a smile. She stood up, adjusting the wrinkled clothes from the day before, feeling terribly out of place amid so much luxury. A soft knock on the door announced Philippe's arrival. He entered, impeccably dressed in a casual suit, carrying a breakfast tray that looked like it belonged in a 5-star hotel. "Good morning," he said, his tone carefully neutral. "I thought everyone might be hungry." The children immediately ran to the tray, exclaiming in delight at the croissants, fresh fruit and assorted juices. Claire watched Philippe interact with them, her heart tight at how effortlessly he charmed them. "Can we talk?" Philippe asked quietly, indicating the balcony with a gesture. Claire nodded, following him outside. The view of the snow-covered city was breathtaking, but she barely noticed, focused on the palpable tension between them. "Claire," Philippe began, hesitant. "About last night, there's so much we need to discuss, to understand." She nodded, crossing her arms protectively. "I know, but Philippe, you have to understand, this doesn't change anything." "Not really. Our lives took completely different paths. But what if we could—" "No," Claire interrupted him gently. "We can't go back. I have 3 children to think about now. They are my priority." Philippe studied her for a moment, then asked, "What are your plans? Where will you stay?" Claire looked away, the reality of her situation weighing on her. I don't know. We had a spot at a shelter, but Stay here, Philippe said quickly. At least until Sophie is fully recovered. She's still coughing, Claire. She needs proper care. Claire felt her pride battling against practical necessity. The idea of accepting charity, especially from Philippe, went against everything she had forced herself to be these past years. Strong, independent, self-sufficient. I can't accept this, Philippe. You've done enough. Please, he interrupted, his voice filled with emotion. Let me help. Not for you if you don't want it, but for the children. They deserve a warm, safe place to recover. Claire closed her eyes, feeling tears threaten. She knew he was right. Sophie needed care that she couldn't currently provide. All right, she whispered, but only until Sophie gets better, and I need to find a job, contribute somehow. Philippe nodded, a small smile appearing on his lips. Of course. We can discuss that later. For now, how about we have breakfast? As they returned inside, Claire was struck by a sudden, vivid memory. The day she received the job offer in Los Angeles, 8 years ago. She was in the tiny apartment she shared with a fellow student from the conservatory, her hands trembling as she held the letter. A position with the Los Angeles Philharmonic. It was every young musician's dream. Claire remembered running to the phone, dialing Philippe's number with trembling fingers. When his father answered, she could barely contain her excitement as she asked to speak with Philippe. He's not here, the cold voice had said, and perhaps that's for the best, Claire. Philippe has finally realized that you two have different futures ahead of you. This offer is your chance to move on without distractions. The shock, the pain, the confusion of that moment came rushing back. How could she have believed it so easily? How could she have left without fighting harder? Sophie's sharp cough brought her back to the present. The girl was having another coughing fit, her small body shaking with the effort. Philippe reacted instantly, grabbing a bottle of syrup from the bedside table and measuring a dose. Here, sweetheart, he said softly, helping Sophie drink. Claire watched, a mixture of gratitude and apprehension welling in her chest. It was strange to see someone else caring for her children with such natural ease. Philippe's phone rang, breaking the moment. He looked at the screen, his expression shifting subtly. I have to take this, he said, stepping quickly into the hallway. Claire watched him go, noticing the sudden tension in his shoulders. Who would be calling so early? And why did it seem to disturb Philippe so much? She turned to the children, helping them with breakfast, but part of her mind remained focused on Philippe. When he returned, minutes later, his face was carefully composed, but Claire could see the concern in his eyes. Is everything all right? She asked hesitantly. Philippe forced a smile. So, of course, just a business, nothing to worry about. But as he joined them for breakfast, chatting animatedly with the children, Claire couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. That phone call, whatever it was, had introduced a new complication into an already delicate situation. Looking out the window at the snow-covered city, Claire wondered what else the future held for her and her children. One thing was certain. The day that had just begun promised even more revelations and challenges. A week passed, like a hazy dream for Claire. Philippe's mansion, once a symbol of everything she had lost, had become a temporary refuge for her and the triplets. Sophie improved with each day, her cough gradually subsiding under the attentive care and medications Philippe provided. Claire watched with a mixture of gratitude and apprehension as Philippe became increasingly involved with the children. He spent his mornings playing with Thomas, reading stories to Marie, and spoiling Sophie with extra attention. The triplets, in turn, flourished with the affection and stability they'd lacked for so long. One sunny morning, Claire sat in the library with a laptop open in front of her, determined to find a job. She knew she couldn't depend on Philippe's generosity indefinitely, tempting as it was. Any luck? Philippe asked, entering the room with 2 cups of coffee. Claire sighed, accepting the drink. A few possibilities, but nothing concrete yet. It's hard to explain the gap in my resume without mentioning that you were struggling to survive. Philippe finished softly. She nodded, a blush of shame coloring her cheeks. Exactly. Philippe seemed about to say something else when the sound of a door slamming echoed through the house, followed by heavy footsteps. Philippe, where are you, son? Philippe's face visibly paled. My father, he murmured, standing up. I had no idea he was coming. Before they could react, the imposing figure of Mr. Laurent appeared at the library door. His gaze passed over Philippe, then fixed on Claire with a mixture of surprise and barely disguised displeasure. What is this? He demanded, his voice cutting. What is she doing here? Philippe instinctively positioned himself between Claire and his father. Father, this is my home and Claire is my guest. There's no need. Guest? Mr. Laurent interrupted with a bitter laugh. Is that what we're calling it now, Philippe? I thought we were past this phase. Claire felt as if she'd been punched in the stomach. Phase? Was that how Philippe's father saw their love? It's not a phase, father, Philippe replied, his voice firm. Claire and I have reconnected by chance. She was going through hardship and I offered help. It's the least I could do after everything. Mr. Laurent narrowed his eyes. After everything? What exactly do you mean by that? A tense silence fell over the room. Claire could feel years of unresolved conflict hovering in the air between father and son. Maybe I should go, Claire said softly, standing up. The children must be... Children? Mr. Laurent almost choked on the word. What children? Philippe sighed deeply. Claire has triplets, father. They're staying here until Sophie, one of the girls, fully recovers. Mr. Laurent's face turned red with anger. This is ridiculous. Philippe, you can't just bring... Careful what you say, father, Philippe warned, his voice dangerously low. Claire, feeling the tension escalate, murmured an excuse and left the library. Her heart pounded as she climbed the stairs, but she stopped abruptly when she heard voices coming from Philippe's office. Can't be a coincidence, Mr. Laurent's voice said. She appears out of nowhere, with 3 children, just when you're about to take full control of the company. Stop it, Philippe responded, frustration evident in his voice. Claire knows nothing about the company or my position in it. This is your paranoia. Is it? And that job offer in Los Angeles? You never wondered if it was truly legitimate. Claire froze, her blood turning to ice in her veins. The job offer wasn't real. What do you mean? Philippe sounded as confused as Claire felt. Think, son, an offer of that caliber, for someone so young and inexperienced. Didn't you find it strange that she never really advanced in her musical career after leaving? The ensuing silence was deafening. Claire felt the ground disappear beneath her feet, her entire life for the past 8 years based on a lie. She staggered to the children's room, her mind a whirlwind. The pieces were falling into place in a painful, shocking way. How easily she had believed his father's words that fateful night. How strange it had been that she never really progressed in her musical career after the move. Hours passed as Claire struggled to process everything she'd heard. When Philippe finally appeared in the room, his face was pale and tense. Claire, he began, his voice trembling. We need to talk. There are things about the past that I'm starting to question. She nodded silently, watching Sophie play happily with her siblings. The girl was almost completely recovered, her laughter echoing through the room like a cruel reminder of what Claire needed to do. I know, she replied softly. But Philippe, Sophie is better now. Maybe it's time for us to leave. Panic crossed Philippe's face. No, I mean, not yet, please. There's so much we need to clarify, to understand. Claire hesitated. Part of her wanted to run, protect herself and the children from more pain and confusion. But another part, one she thought she had buried long ago, longed for answers, for closure. All right, she finally agreed. We'll stay for now, but Philippe, whatever we discover about the past, we can't let it define our future. The children must come first. Philippe nodded solemnly. I understand, and I promise. We'll get to the bottom of this. Together. As the sun set outside, casting long shadows across the room, Claire couldn't help but feel they were on the brink of something monumental. The past, with all its secrets and lies, was about to be exposed, and she could only hope they were all ready for the truths that would come to light. The shrill sound of the phone broke the morning silence. Claire, who was helping the triplets with breakfast, answered quickly, her heart racing as she heard the voice on the other end. Ms. Durand, this is the New York Symphony Orchestra. We'd like to schedule an interview for the administrative assistant position. Claire could barely contain her excitement as she wrote down the details. Finally, a real opportunity to restart her life. Philippe entered the kitchen at the moment she hung up, his face lighting up when he saw her radiant smile. "Good news?" he asked, helping himself to some coffee. Claire nodded enthusiastically. "I got an interview with the New York Philharmonic." "Claire, that's wonderful," Philippe exclaimed. Then, hesitantly, he added, "If you need any help, recommendations, contacts—" "No," Claire interrupted him gently but firmly. "I appreciate it, Philippe, but I need to do this on my own. You understand?" He nodded, a mixture of admiration and frustration in his eyes. "Of course. You've always been independent." At that moment, Thomas ran over to Philippe, grabbing his leg. "Uncle Phil, you promised to teach me how to play chess today." Claire watched with a tightness in her chest as Philippe lifted the boy, laughing. "That's right, champ, after breakfast, okay?" The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of emotions for Claire. As she prepared for her interview, she couldn't help noticing how the triplets were growing more attached to Philippe. He was patient, caring, and seemed genuinely to adore the children. He was the father figure they had never had. And that scared Claire more than she cared to admit. One night, after putting the children to bed, Claire found Philippe on the balcony, contemplating the illuminated city. The air was charged with nostalgia and unrealized possibilities. "They asked if you could read them a bedtime story tomorrow," Claire said softly, joining him. Philippe smiled, but his eyes were distant. "Of course. I'd love to." The silence that followed was filled with unspoken words. Claire found herself recalling the moments they'd shared years ago, walks in the park, late nights studying together, the dreams they had built. She fought against the wave of feelings threatening to engulf her. She couldn't afford to get lost in these memories, not when her children's future was at stake. For his part, Philippe seemed lost in his own thoughts. The next day, Claire accidentally overheard him talking quietly on the phone with a friend. "No, Mark, you don't understand," Philippe said, his voice charged with emotion. "Seeing her again, being near her, I've realized I never really got over her. Claire was always the one for me." Claire withdrew silently, her heart pounding. She shouldn't have heard that. She couldn't deal with this now. That night, lying in bed, Claire was transported back to the past, vividly reliving her last encounter with Philippe before their separation. Flashback. They were in Claire's tiny apartment, sitting on the worn-out couch, discussing their plans for the future. Philippe held her hands, his eyes shining with excitement. "Think about it, Claire. After I graduate and take my position at the company, we can get married. We'll have the life we always dreamed of." Claire smiled, but there was a shadow of doubt in her eyes. "And my music. My dreams of playing professionally. You can play as a hobby," Philippe replied casually. "We'll have enough money so you won't need to work." Claire's smile faltered. "But Philippe, music isn't just a hobby for me. It's who I am." The argument that followed was their first big fight. Harsh words were exchanged, dreams questioned. When Philippe left that night, Claire had no idea it would be the last time she saw him for 8 long years. End of flashback. Claire blinked, returning to the present. That memory now seemed different in light of the recent revelations. Had Philippe's father interfered even before the job offer? Determined to find answers, Claire slipped into Philippe's office the next morning, while he took the children to the park. Searching the drawers, she found a folder marked with her name. Inside were copies of old emails, the supposed Los Angeles job offer, and a series of private investigator reports. Claire felt her blood run cold. Philippe had investigated her. Why, when? Before she could fully process what she was seeing, the phone on the desk rang, startling her. The answering machine picked up. "Philippe, it's your father. The lawyers found a loophole in the contract. We can invalidate that clause about, well, you know, call me as soon as you can. And for God's sake, get rid of that woman and those children. They're a distraction you can't afford right now." Claire froze, her mind spinning. What clause? What contract? And why was Mr. Laurent so determined to drive her away again? The sound of the front door opening snapped her out of her stupor. Quickly, she put the documents back and left the office, only to come face to face with Philippe in the hallway. "Claire?" he asked, frowning at her disturbed expression. "Is everything all right?" She opened her mouth to answer, but was interrupted by the ringing of Philippe's cell phone. He glanced at the screen, his face blanching visibly. "I have to take this," he murmured, moving away quickly. Claire watched him go, her heart heavy with doubt and suspicion. What else was Philippe hiding? And how would it affect the fragile balance they'd built over the past weeks? As the triplets' cheerful voices echoed through the house, Claire found herself at a crossroads. Should she confront Philippe with what she'd discovered? Or was it time to take her children and leave before their hearts, and hers, were irreparably broken again? The shrill alarm cut through the morning silence. Claire opened her eyes, filled with a mixture of anxiety and determination. It was her first day at her new job with the New York Philharmonic. As she hurried to get ready, her mind was torn between the excitement of work and the worry for her triplets. How would she balance it all? "Don't worry," Philippe said, appearing in the doorway with a cup of coffee. "I'll take care of the children. We've got everything under control." Claire hesitated, but time was short and she had no choice. "Thank you," she murmured, taking the cup. "I'll call you during my lunch break to check in." The day passed in a blur of new information, co-workers, and responsibilities. When Claire finally returned to the mansion, exhausted but satisfied, she found a scene that took her breath away. Philippe was in the living room, surrounded by the triplets. Thomas proudly showed off a drawing, Marie read aloud from a new book, and Sophie, cheeks rosy with health, played with a puzzle. "Mommy!" they shouted in unison upon seeing her. Claire hugged them, feeling a pang of guilt, jealousy. The children seemed so happy, so adjusted. "How was your day?" Philippe asked, smiling. "Good," Claire replied, trying to ignore the warmth she felt at seeing Philippe so at ease with her children. "Tiring, but good." In the days that followed, a routine emerged. Claire went to work, Philippe cared for the children, and together they created a dynamic that, although unconventional, worked. It was on a Thursday afternoon that the balance was disturbed. Claire arrived home to find the mansion in an uproar. "What's going on?" she asked one of the maids rushing by. "Rose is back," the woman replied, barely containing her displeasure. Claire frowned, the name vaguely familiar. Following the sound of raised voices, she reached the kitchen where she found a tense scene. A middle-aged woman with graying hair and a stiff posture faced off against the current housekeeper. Philippe stood between them, trying to calm things down. "Claire!" he exclaimed, relieved to see her, as if she were a welcome distraction. "This is Rose. She worked for my family for years." Rose turned to Claire, her eyes widening in recognition. For a moment, Claire thought the woman wanted to say something but held back. "It's a pleasure to see you again, miss," Rose finally said, her voice laden with a meaning Claire couldn't decipher. In the following days, Claire couldn't help but notice the strange looks Rose gave her. It was as though the older woman carried a weight, a secret she was struggling to keep. Philippe, for his part, seemed increasingly worried. Claire caught him on the phone several times, speaking in hushed tones, asking questions about past events. One night, while looking for a book to read to the children, Claire accidentally opened the wrong drawer in Philippe's bedside table. Her heart stopped at the sight of a stack of old photographs. They were pictures of her and Philippe years ago. In each one, the young couple smiled, unaware of the future that awaited them. Claire felt tears forming in her eyes. Philippe had kept these photos all these years. Her thoughts were interrupted by voices coming from the hallway. Philippe was hosting some executives for a business dinner. Claire hurried out of the room, not wanting to be caught snooping. However, as she passed by the office, she couldn't help overhearing snippets of the conversation. "Cannot be serious, Philippe," a male voice said. "Bringing this woman and her children into your home? What will people think?" "What I do in my personal life is no one's business," Philippe responded, his voice tense. "But it is the shareholders' business. Think about your image, the company's image." Claire felt her face burn with shame and anger. Was this how Philippe's world saw her? A stain on his reputation? She was about to walk away when another, quieter voice caught her attention. "Philippe, You need to consider the possibility that all this was orchestrated, the voice said. Her reappearance, the moving story, right when you're about to assume full control of the company. What are you talking about? Philippe asked, confused. Think carefully. First, years ago, that convenient job offer that drove her away. Now she reappears out of nowhere. Don't you think there might be some manipulation going on? Claire froze, her heart pounding. Manipulation? By whom? Rose knows something, the voice continued. She worked for your father back then. Maybe it's time to press her for answers. Claire backed away silently, her mind a whirlwind. The puzzle pieces were starting to fit together, forming a disturbing picture. Returning to the children's room, she found them sleeping peacefully. Sophie, particularly, looked healthier than ever, her rosy cheeks contrasting with the white sheets. Claire sat on the edge of the bed, gently stroking her daughter's hair. The new environment had done wonders for the children. They were thriving, happy, safe. But at what cost? The night's revelations weighed heavily on her heart. There was more at stake than just her past with Philippe. Greater forces seemed to be at play, manipulating their lives like chess pieces. Claire knew she stood on the brink of a discovery that could change everything. The truth was there, tantalizingly close, hidden in the shadows of the past and in the whispered secrets along the mansion's corridors. As the distant sounds of the business dinner echoed, Claire made a decision. She would uncover the truth, no matter the cost. For herself, for Philippe, and above all, for her children. The loose thread was within reach. It was time to pull it and see what would unravel. Dawn found Claire restless, tossing and turning after a fitful night of sleep. The words she had overheard at the business dinner echoed in her mind, raising questions she feared to face. On her way to the kitchen to make the children's breakfast, Claire almost collided with Rose, who seemed to be waiting for her. "Miss Claire," Rose said, her voice low and urgent, "we need to talk, in private." Intrigued and apprehensive, Claire nodded, following Rose to a secluded corner of the garden. "What I'm about to tell you," Rose began, her hands trembling slightly, "should have been revealed a long time ago. I beg forgiveness for my silence all these years." Claire's heart raced. "What are you talking about, Rose?" "The Los Angeles job offer," Rose said, meeting Claire's eyes. "It was a sham, orchestrated by Mr. Laurent to separate you from Philippe." Claire's world seemed to crumble. "What, but how? Why?" Rose sighed deeply. "Mr. Laurent always saw you as a distraction to Philippe, an obstacle to the plans he had for his son's future and the company. He used his contacts to create an irresistible job offer, knowing your passion for music would lead you to accept." The revelations kept coming, each word a dagger to Claire's heart. The intercepted letters, the lies told to Philippe about Claire's supposed ambitions, the careful manipulation to ensure they stayed apart. Claire staggered to a nearby bench, her mind a maelstrom of freshly contextualized memories. All the small details that hadn't made sense at the time, the sudden distance from Philippe, his family's coldness, the strange ease with which she got the job, now fit into a disturbing puzzle. "Why are you telling me this now?" Claire asked, her voice trembling. "Because I see how you and Philippe look at each other," Rose replied softly. "And because I can't carry this weight any longer. You deserve the truth." Meanwhile, in the main office of Laurent Enterprises, Philippe was frantically searching through old documents. His suspicions, fueled by weeks of discreet investigation, led him to unearth files his father had hidden years before. Contracts, emails, phone records, all pointed to a truth Philippe struggled to accept. His own father, the man he had always admired and respected, had orchestrated the greatest pain of his life. The internal conflict was devastating. Years of family loyalty battled against the undeniable evidence before him. How could he confront his father? How could he look at Claire knowing what his family had done? Back at the mansion, the tension was palpable. The children, always sensitive to adult emotions, were restless. Thomas, in particular, seemed to have taken on a protective role, always watching over his sisters and casting wary glances at Philippe. It was in this charged atmosphere that Claire and Philippe finally met in the library, both weighed down by their recent discoveries. "Did you know?" Claire asked without preamble, her voice a mixture of pain and accusation. Philippe shook his head, looking older and more tired. Not until recently, Claire, I swear, if I had known. 8 years, Philippe, Claire exploded. The years of repressed hurt finally finding an outlet. 8 years thinking you discarded me, that our story meant nothing to you. Do you think it was easy for me? Philippe retorted, his own pain surfacing. Thinking you chose your career over us, that everything we had was disposable to you. The argument escalated, years of misunderstandings and broken hearts exposed. Voices rose, tears were shed, and painful truths were laid bare. Upstairs, Thomas pressed his hands over Sophie's and Marie's ears, trying to protect them from the shouting. It's okay, he whispered, though his own voice trembled. Mommy will be fine. We'll be fine. Down in the library, Claire and Philippe were exhausted, emotionally drained by the intensity of their confrontation. What do we do now? Claire asked, her voice hoarse. Before Philippe could answer, Rose entered hesitantly, carrying a worn box. There's one more thing you need to see, she said softly. Opening the box, she revealed dozens of letters, all addressed to Claire, all in Philippe's handwriting. I intercepted them over the years, at Mr. Laurent's request, but I couldn't bring myself to destroy them. Claire took one of the letters with trembling hands, immediately recognizing Philippe's script. As she opened it, she was flooded by the emotion and devotion contained in the words. Philippe watched, his heart breaking as Claire read words he had written so long ago, words she was never meant to see. I never stopped loving you, Philippe said softly. Even when I thought you had moved on, a part of me always hoped. Claire looked at him, tears rolling down her face. The anger from moments before had been replaced by deep pain and a flicker of something she feared to name. Hope. What do we do now? She repeated, her voice barely a whisper. Philippa took a step toward her, hesitant. I don't know, but I know I don't want to lose you again. Not you, not the children. Claire closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the revelations, the possibilities, and the fears. 8 years of separation, lives built apart, and now, this crucial moment. We need time, she said finally, to process all this, to think about what's best for the children. Philippe nodded, understanding. Time is something I can give. Just don't disappear again, please. Claire looked at the letters in her hands, at Rose standing silently in the corner, and finally at Philippe. So many revelations, so many twists. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Nothing would ever be the same again. I won't disappear, she promised softly. But Philippe, we need to face the whole truth if we want any chance at a future. As the sun set outside, casting long shadows across the library, Claire and Philippe stood at the threshold of a new beginning. A beginning built on painful truths, but also on a love that, against all odds, had survived time and manipulation. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in 8 years, it was full of possibilities. The gentle morning light found Claire sitting in the guest room armchair, a stack of letters spread across her lap. She'd spent the entire night reading and rereading Philippe's words, each line revealing a love she thought she had lost long ago. My dear Claire, read one of the letters, dated a few months after her departure. Not a day goes by that I don't think of you, that I don't miss you. Why won't you answer? The silence is deafening. Silent tears streamed down Claire's face as she absorbed the weight of 8 years of misunderstandings. The anger she had felt for so long was fading, replaced by a deep pain for the lost time and the manipulations that had kept them apart. Meanwhile, in the main office of Laurent Enterprises, Philippe confronted his father, years of resentment finally surfacing. How could you? Philippe demanded, his voice shaking with contained rage. How could you lie, manipulate our lives this way? Mr. Laurent, for the first time looking aged and weary, sank heavily into his chair. I did what I thought was best for you, for your future. Best? Philippe nearly shouted. Destroying my happiness was best. A sudden flashback transported Philippe to 8 years ago. He saw himself, young and confident, sitting in this same office, his father speaking in a smooth, persuasive voice. Son, understand? Mr. Laurent was saying. Claire is a distraction. She has her own dreams, her own career. Do you really think she would give that up for you, for this family? The young Philippe hesitated, doubts skillfully planted in his mind. Think of the company's future, the legacy you'll inherit, his father continued. Sometimes we have to make difficult choices for the greater good. Back in the present, Philippe stared at his father with a mix of hurt and disappointment. You had no right, he said, his voice now low and dangerous. They were our lives, our choices. At the mansion, Claire finally emerged from her room, eyes red and swollen from crying. She found the triplets in the kitchen, Thomas trying unsuccessfully to make pancakes for his sisters. "Mommy!" Sophie exclaimed, running to hug her. "Are you sad?" Claire forced a smile, hugging her daughter. "No, sweetheart. Just thoughtful." The children exchanged glances, clearly sensing that something was different. The tension of recent days had not gone unnoticed by them. "Where's Uncle Philippe?" Marie asked innocently. Claire felt her heart tighten. How could she explain the complexity of the situation to such young children? "He had to leave early," she replied vaguely. "Now who wants some real pancakes?" As she prepared breakfast, Claire fought an internal battle of emotions, anger at the manipulation, sadness for the lost years, and, most frightening of all, a love that was resurfacing powerfully, threatening to tear down all the barriers she'd built over the years. The day had barely begun when Sophie started coughing violently, her small body shaking with effort. Claire, panicked, ran to get the medicine, but nothing seemed to help. "We need to take her to the hospital," she decided, fear evident in her voice. Just then, Philippe returned, looking exhausted but immediately alert upon seeing the scene. "What happened?" he asked, already grabbing his car keys. "Sophie," Claire answered, her voice trembling. "She's getting worse." Without hesitation, Philippe picked the girl up in his arms. "Let's go. I'll drive." The hours in the hospital were agonizing. Claire and Philippe sat side by side in the waiting room, fear for Sophie temporarily overshadowing all other complications between them. "She'll be fine," Philippe murmured, holding Claire's hand without realizing it. "She's strong, like her mother." Claire looked at their intertwined hands, feeling a familiar warmth spreading through her chest. It was so easy to get lost in this feeling of comfort and partnership. Finally, the doctor appeared with reassuring news. Sophie would be fine, but she'd need extra care in the coming days. Back at the mansion, with Sophie sleeping peacefully, Claire and Philippe found themselves alone in the kitchen, the tension between them palpable. "I've made a decision," Philippe said suddenly. "I'm stepping away from the company." Claire stared at him, shocked. "What? But Philippe, the company is your life." He shook his head. "No, all of you are my life. The company, the family legacy. I've realized they mean nothing if the price is my integrity, my happiness." Claire felt tears form again. "Philippe, wait," he interrupted gently. "There's more. I got a call today. The Boston Symphony Orchestra is looking for a new administrative director. They asked about you." Claire's heart raced. Boston, a new city, a new chance. Away from the complications, the painful memories. I don't know what to say," she murmured. Philippe took a step toward her. "Say you'll stay, that we'll face this together. Claire, I know we made mistakes, that we were manipulated, but what I feel for you never changed." Claire closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the decision on her shoulders. Leaving would mean a fresh start, a chance to protect her heart and her children's. Staying would mean facing the past, risking herself again. "I'm afraid," she whispered. "Afraid of getting hurt again, of hurting the children." Philippe gently lifted her chin, making her meet his gaze. "I'm afraid too, but I'm more afraid of losing you again." In that moment, with vulnerability exposed and emotions running high, Claire felt her defenses crumble. Before she could think, her lips found Philippe's in an unexpected, long-desired kiss. The kiss was gentle, hesitant, loaded with years of longing and unfulfilled promises. When they pulled apart, both were breathless, their eyes shining with a mixture of surprise and desire. Claire began, but she was interrupted by the sound of footsteps approaching. Thomas appeared at the kitchen door, his eyes wide at the scene before him. "Mommy, Uncle Philippe!" Claire and Philippe stepped apart quickly, blushing like teenagers caught in the act. "It's all right, sweetheart," Claire said, her voice unsteady. "We were just talking." Thomas looked skeptical but said nothing, just grabbed a glass of water and left. Claire and Philippe exchanged glances, the reality of their complex situation returning with full force. "We need to think about the children," Claire said softly. Philippe nodded. "I know. But Claire, please, don't make any hasty decisions. Give us a chance. Give the children the chance to have a complete family." Claire felt her heart constrict at the possibility. A complete family, something she never imagined could happen again. "I need time," she finally said, "to think, to process all this." Philippe took her hand, squeezing it gently. "Time is something I can give. Just promise you'll consider staying, that you'll give us a chance." Claire looked at their joined hands, at the man she never truly stopped loving, and at the door where her son had just left. The future was uncertain, full of challenges, but for the first time in years, it was also full of hope. "I promise," she whispered, sealing a pact that could change the course of their lives forever. The next morning brought a mix of expectation and apprehension. Claire and Philippe met in the kitchen, exchanging hesitant looks as they prepared breakfast for the children. "About last night," Philippe began, his voice low. Claire's heart sped up. "It was intense," she replied, choosing her words carefully. "I don't regret it," Philippe said firmly. "But I understand if you need space." Before Claire could respond, the triplets burst into the kitchen, excited. "Mummy, can we stay here forever?" Marie asked innocently. Claire exchanged a surprised look with Philippe. "Sweetheart, it's not that simple." "But Uncle Philippe takes such good care of us," Thomas argued. "It's like having a dad." The silence that followed was charged with emotion. Philippe looked touched, while Claire struggled to find the right words. "Children," she finally said. "Things are complicated for adults, but I promise we'll think about what's best for all of us." Later that day, Claire received a call from the hospital regarding Sophie's ongoing treatment. The cost was astronomical, far beyond what she could afford. Philippe, noticing her distress, offered immediate help. "Let me take care of it, Claire, please." Claire felt her pride battling her practical needs. After years on her own, accepting help felt like defeat. But looking at Sophie, pale but smiling, she knew she had no choice. "Thank you," she whispered, accepting Philippe's offer. At Laurent Enterprises, Philippe was initiating a silent revolution. In tense meetings with the board, he began dismantling unethical practices that had long been standard. "We can't keep operating this way," he declared firmly. "It's time for change." Some directors resisted, but Philippe was unwavering. The company he would inherit would be one he could lead with pride and integrity. Back at the mansion, Rose sought out Claire, her eyes full of remorse. "There's more you need to know," she said, guiding Claire to a quiet corner of the garden. Rose revealed painful details of the years of separation. Philippe's attempts to find Claire, the lies told to him, the carefully orchestrated moments of almost reunion that were sabotaged. "I should have spoken earlier," Rose concluded, tears in her eyes. "I hope one day you can forgive me." Claire, though shaken by the revelations, felt a wave of compassion for the older woman. "Thank you for your honesty, Rose. It means a lot." As the days passed, Claire and Philippe began rebuilding their relationship, brick by brick. Honest conversations about the past, hopes for the future, and shared fears formed the foundation of a new trust. One afternoon, Philippe surprised Claire with an outing. "Where are we going?" she asked, curious. "You'll see," he replied with a mysterious smile. When they arrived at the old conservatory where they had first met, Claire's heart tightened. The building was slightly more worn, but still majestic. "I thought we could revisit where it all began," Philippe said softly. They walked through the corridors, memories flooding them at every step. The auditorium where Claire had first performed, the classroom where Philippe had surprised her with flowers after a tough exam. "Remember that night?" Claire asked, stopping in front of a particular window. "When we stayed late practicing and ended up dancing under the stars?" Philippe smiled, his eyes shining at the memory. "How could I forget? It was when I realized I was irreparably in love with you." Claire's heart raced at the intensity of Philippe's gaze. It was as if the years of separation had vanished, leaving only the pure love they had shared. Days later, Claire was surprised upon entering the living room and finding a magnificent grand piano. "Philippe, what is this?" she asked, breathless. "A gift," he answered simply. "To encourage you to play again. Your music has always been part of who you are, Claire." With trembling hands, Claire sat at the piano. The first notes were hesitant, but soon the music flowed through her, years of suppressed emotions finding expression in the keys. Philippe watched, amazed, as the children gathered around, fascinated by their mother's transformation. Over the weeks, the changes in the children became evident. Thomas, once wary, opened up more, often asking Philippe for help with his homework. Marie, always the artist, covered the mansion's walls with colorful drawings of her new family. And Sophie, though still fragile, radiated a new energy, her laughter echoing through the halls. One night, Philippe suggested a family dinner. The table was set carefully, candles casting a warm glow over the dining room. As everyone took their seats, Philippe raised his glass. "I'd like to make a toast," he said, voice full of emotion. "To family, in all its forms, and to new beginnings." Claire felt tears forming as she raised her own glass. The children, touched by the moment's solemnity, also raised their glasses of juice. "To family," they all echoed. As the meal went on, filled with laughter and lively conversation, Claire couldn't help reflecting on the journey that brought them here. So much pain, so many misunderstandings, but also so much love and potential for the future. Looking at Philippe, who was helping Sophie cut her food, Claire felt a surge of affection so strong it nearly took her breath away. He met her gaze, smiling in a way that made her heart skip a beat. Later, after putting the children to bed, Claire and Philippe met on the balcony watching the stars. "Thank you," Claire said softly, "for not giving up, for giving us this chance." Philippe took her hand, interlacing their fingers. "I should be the one thanking you, Claire, for being open to this, for trusting me again." They remained silent for a moment, absorbing the peace of the night and the promise of tomorrow. "We still have a lot to resolve," Claire finally said. "Many bridges to rebuild." Philippe nodded. "I know, but we're on the right track, don't you think?" Claire looked at their joined hands, at the home where her children slept safely, and at the man by her side. The road ahead was still uncertain, full of challenges, but for the first time in years, she felt truly hopeful. "Yes," she replied, squeezing Philippe's hand. "I think we are." As the night wore on, Claire and Philippe remained side by side, silently making plans for the future, rebuilding, brick by brick, the love that had never truly died. The gentle sound of piano music filled the Laurent mansion on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. Claire, seated at the magnificent instrument Philippe had given her, patiently guided her new students through the complexities of Chopin and Mozart. "Very good, Olivia," she encouraged a young student. "Remember to feel the music, not just play it." Resuming her passion for music had brought a new sparkle to Claire's eyes. Teaching part-time not only helped her feel productive, but also reconnected her with a part of herself that had long lain dormant. Philippe, meanwhile, juggled his responsibilities at the company with his new family role. He made sure to be present at dinners, help with homework, and share special moments with the triplets. "How was the meeting?" Claire asked one night as Philippe loosened his tie. "Tense," he admitted. "Some investors aren't happy with the ethical changes I'm implementing, but it's the right thing to do." Claire smiled, proud of his determination. The real challenge, however, came when they tried integrating the children into Philippe's social world. A brunch at the country club proved to be a minefield of curious looks and whispered comments. "So these are Claire's children?" a woman asked in a falsely sweet tone. "Yes, my children," Claire replied firmly, placing a protective hand on Sophie's shoulder. Philippe, noticing the discomfort, intervened quickly. "And they are a wonderful addition to my life," he declared, loud enough for everyone to hear. Later, away from prying ears, Claire vented. "I didn't expect it to be so hard," Philippe sighed. "I'm sorry. This world can be cruel at times, but we won't let it affect us, right?" Claire nodded, grateful for his support. At the company, Philippe faced his own challenges. A highly profitable but ethically questionable business proposal was presented. Think of the profits. Mr. Laurent, one of the directors, insisted, it could double our market value. Philippe looked at the proposal, remembering the integrity he had promised himself and Claire. No, he said firmly. We'll find a better, more ethical way. Meanwhile, the children began their school journey at a prestigious private institution. The first day was a mix of excitement and nerves. What if they don't like me? Sophie asked, clinging to Claire's hand. Just be yourself, sweetheart, Claire encouraged her. You're amazing just as you are. Philippe knelt down to the children's level. Remember, you're Laurence now, strong, brave, and kind. Claire felt a slight pang at his words. They were Laurence now. The challenges at school didn't take long to appear. Thomas came home one day, upset after hearing comments about his non-traditional family. Claire and Philippe joined forces, talking with teachers and administrators, ensuring the children would be treated with respect and understanding. We won't allow anyone to make them feel less, Philippe declared during a tense meeting with the school's principal. At home, Rose proved an invaluable ally. Her experience and warmth helped the children adjust to their new life. Did you know your father used to hide cookies under his pillow when he was a boy? Rose told the triplets one night, making them laugh and look at Philippe with newfound admiration. Watching the scene, Philippe felt his heart expand. He loved these children as if they were his own. One night, as Claire was putting them to bed, he broached the subject that had been on his mind. Claire, he began hesitantly, have you ever thought about adoption? Claire froze, her eyes widening. Adoption? I love the children, Philippe explained quickly. And I want them to know they're a permanent part of this family, legally. Claire felt a mixture of emotions, gratitude, fear, hope. That's a huge decision, Philippe. We need to think carefully. He nodded, understanding her hesitation. Of course, there's no rush. Just think about it, okay? The climax of social challenges came with the annual Laurent Enterprises charity event. Claire, dressed in an elegant gown, felt like a fish out of water among the city's elite. Claire, dear, a socialite approached her with false sympathy. What a fairy tale story yours is. From a struggling single mother to a, well, you know. Claire felt her face burn, but before she could reply, Philippe appeared at her side. An incredible woman who brought love and purpose to my life, he completed, leaving no doubt about his feelings. Later, during Philippe's speech, Claire felt her heart fill with pride. This year our company didn't just grow in numbers, but in conscience, Philippe declared. I believe true success comes when we lift not just ourselves, but the community around us. His eyes found Claire's in the crowd, and a silent understanding passed between them. They were on this journey together, facing every challenge side by side. As the night progressed, Claire reflected on the past months. It had been an emotional roller coaster, but each obstacle had strengthened them as individuals and as a family. Philippe joined her on the balcony, away from the party's bustle. What are you thinking? He asked softly. Claire smiled, intertwining her fingers with his, about how unpredictable life is. And how grateful I am to be here now with you. Philippe pulled her close, planting a gentle kiss on her forehead. Together we can face anything, he murmured. Under the stars, with the distant sound of the party in the background, Claire knew he was right. No matter what the future held, they would face it together, growing stronger with each step. The shrill sound of the doorbell echoed through the Laurent mansion on a peaceful Sunday morning. Claire, helping Sophie with a puzzle, felt a chill at the sound of the familiar, authoritative voice that followed. Where is my son? Mr. Laurent demanded, his imposing presence filling the foyer. Philippe appeared quickly, placing himself protectively between his father and the room where Claire and the children were. Father, what are you doing here? Philippe asked, his voice tense. I've come to end this farce, Mr. Laurent declared, fury sparking in his eyes. You're throwing away everything we worked for, and for what? For us, watch what you say, Philippe warned, his voice dangerously low. Claire, unable to contain herself, stepped out of the room, confronting Mr. Laurent directly. Mr. Laurent, she began, her voice firm despite the trembling in her hands. For years you manipulated our lives. caused unimaginable pain not just to me and Philippe, but also to innocent children. Why? Mr. Laurent seemed momentarily stunned by her direct confrontation, but quickly recovered. I did what was necessary to protect our family's legacy. You are a distraction. A distraction, Philippe interjected, voice filled with indignation. Claire and the children are my family now. They make me happy, make me want to be a better person. How can you not see that? Mr. Laurent shook his head, disgust evident. You're blind, son. This woman and these children will ruin everything. At that moment, Thomas, who had sneaked into the hallway, spoke up. Leave my mom alone. The ensuing silence was deafening. Mr. Laurent looked at the boy, then at Claire, and finally at Philippe. So this is how it is, he asked, voice cold. You choose them over your true family. Philippe straightened, his resolve clear in every line of his body. Yes, father. I choose love, honesty, and integrity. I choose Claire and the children. If you can't accept that, then there's nothing left to say. Mr. Laurent, realizing he'd lost, cast one last look of contempt before leaving, slamming the door behind him. In the days that followed, a thorough investigation revealed the extent of the Laurent family's manipulation. Emails, forged contracts, even bribes, all came to light. Claire, sitting in the library as she read through the reports, felt a wave of guilt wash over her. How could I have been so blind? She murmured, tears running down her cheeks. Philippe, noticing her anguish, knelt in front of her. Claire, it wasn't your fault. We were all victims of a cruel, calculated manipulation. His words of comfort, though appreciated, didn't fully lighten the weight in her heart. Sensing Claire's need to face her past, Philippe proposed an idea. What if we visit the town where you lived these last few years? It might help us understand, to heal. Claire hesitated, but finally agreed. Days later, they set off on an emotional journey, the triplets excited by the adventure, not fully grasping its significance. Their first stop was the small apartment where Claire had raised the children. It's so small, Sophie commented, wide-eyed. But it was full of love, Claire replied softly, memories flooding back. Philippe watched with a knot in his throat, imagining Claire's daily struggles. They visited the park where Claire took the children to play, the clinic where Sophie received her first treatments, and the diner where Claire had worked for so many years. At each stop, they met people who had been part of Claire's life. The elderly lady who babysat when Claire worked overtime, the doctor who often treated Sophie after hours, moved by Claire's dedication, the co-worker who shared her snack when she knew Claire didn't have enough to eat. Philippe observed, amazed and emotional, how each person spoke of Claire with admiration and affection. He began to truly see the strength, resilience, and unconditional love that defined Claire's years away from him. You're amazing, he whispered to her as they walked hand in hand through the old neighborhood. All that you faced, all that you overcame. Claire smiled sadly. I did what I had to do for the children. They were always my strength. That night, staying in a small hotel in the town, Claire and Philippe had a long conversation with the triplets. It was time for complete honesty about the past. Children, Claire began, her voice gentle but firm. A long time ago, before you were born, Philippe and I loved each other very much. Like in a princess story, Marie asked, eyes bright. Philippe smiled. Something like that. But not all stories are simple. With carefully chosen words, they explained the separation, the lies and manipulations, and how fate had brought them back together. So, is Grandpa Laurent bad? Thomas asked, frowning. No, sweetheart, Claire answered. He made serious mistakes, but he believed he was protecting his family. The important thing, Philippe added, is that we're together now, and nothing will change that. The children absorbed the story, asking questions and expressing emotions. It was a night of tears, hugs, and surprisingly, laughter, as the truth strengthened their bond. Later, with the children finally asleep, Claire and Philippe stood on the hotel balcony, looking at the stars. Thank you, Claire said softly, for this trip, for understanding. Philippe pulled her close, kissing her forehead. Thank you for letting me be part of your life and theirs. I promise I'll do everything I can to be worthy of your love." As the night wore on, Claire felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The past, with all its pain and challenges, had been faced. Now, looking at Philippe and thinking about her 3 sleeping children, she knew that the future, though uncertain, was full of promise and love. "Are we ready to go home?" Philippe asked softly. Claire smiled, understanding the true meaning behind the word home. It wasn't a place, but the people we share our lives with. "Yes," she replied, intertwining her fingers with his. "Let's go home." Autumn painted the mansion's garden in shades of red and gold when Philippe decided the time was right. After weeks of meticulous planning, he invited Claire for a special picnic at the exact spot where they had first reunited on that fateful Christmas Eve. Claire, intrigued by Philippe's mysterious air, followed him to a spot decorated with lanterns and flowers. The children, accomplices in the plan, watched secretly from behind a nearby tree, barely containing their excitement. "Claire," Philippe began, his voice trembling slightly as he took her hands, "these last months have been the happiest of my life. You and the children have brought a light I didn't even know was missing." Claire's heart raced, anticipating what was about to happen. Philippe knelt down, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "Claire Durand, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife? Of building together the future that was denied to us years ago." Tears shimmered in Claire's eyes as she saw the ring, the same one Philippe had given her 8 years before, carefully kept all this time. Before she could respond, there was a muffled squeal followed by giggles. The triplets, unable to contain themselves, ran from their hiding place. "Say yes, Mommy," Sophie begged, her eyes shining with hope. "Please, please," Marie added, jumping with excitement. Thomas, always the most reserved, simply looked from Claire to Philippe with anticipation. Claire felt her heart tighten with a mix of love and fear. "Philippe, I don't know. What if we make the same mistakes?" Philippe stood up, holding her hands firmly. "Can we talk in private?" Claire nodded, and Rose, who had been watching discreetly, stepped forward to lead the children back to the house with promises of hot chocolate and stories. Alone again, Philippe guided Claire to a nearby bench. "Talk to me, love. What are your fears?" Claire took a deep breath, letting the words flow. "What if we can't overcome our past? What if the expectations and pressures are too great? Philippe, I can't risk the children's well-being if things go wrong." Philippe listened attentively, his heart aching at the pain in Claire's voice. When she finished, he spoke softly. "Claire, our past shaped us, but it doesn't have to define us. We've learned from our mistakes. This time, we'll face everything together, with honesty and open communication." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "And about the children, I love them as if they were my own. Actually, I'd like to adopt them officially if you agree." Claire stared at him, surprised. "Adopt, Philippe? That's a huge responsibility." "I know," he replied, conviction in his voice, "and I'm ready to take it. Thomas, Marie, and Sophie are already my family at heart. I want it to be official in the eyes of the law as well." Claire felt tears threatening again, this time from pure emotion. "You really want this? An instant family?" Philippe smiled, gently wiping a tear from her cheek. "Not instant. We built this together, day by day. And I want to keep building it, for the rest of our lives." In that moment, looking into Philippe's sincere eyes, Claire felt her last hesitations dissolve. "Yes," she whispered, then stronger. "Yes, Philippe. Yes to marriage, yes to adoption, yes to our future together." The cheer that followed came not only from Philippe, but also from the children who, of course, had escaped Rose's supervision and were hiding behind a nearby bush. The following days were a whirlwind of planning and emotions. Claire and Philippe met with lawyers to begin the adoption process, facing the bureaucracy with determination. "It will be a long process," the lawyer explained, "but given the time the children have already spent with you and the established relationship, we have a good chance." Meanwhile, preparations for the wedding advanced. Claire insisted on something simple and intimate, reflecting the new family dynamic they had built. "No extravagances," she told Philippe. "Just us, the children, and the people who really matter." Philippe, wholeheartedly agreed, pleased to see Claire taking charge with enthusiasm. One evening during dinner, Marie raised an important question. When the wedding happens, what do we call Philippe? A silence fell over the table, everyone recognizing the importance of the question. Well, Philippe began carefully, that depends on you. You can call me whatever feels comfortable. Thomas, who had been quiet, finally spoke. What if we want to call you Dad? Philippe's heart seemed to stop for a moment. He looked at Claire, seeking guidance. Claire smiled encouragingly. It's your decision, children. Philippe loves you and wants to be your father in every way. But we understand if you need time. Sophie, always the most emotional, jumped out of her chair and ran to hug Philippe. I want to call you Daddy, she exclaimed. Marie quickly joined her sister. Me too. All eyes turned to Thomas, who seemed to be struggling internally. Philippe knelt in front of the boy, meeting his eyes. Thomas, he said softly, there's no pressure. You can take as long as you need. No matter what you call me, I'll always love and care for you. Thomas looked at Philippe, then at his mother, who nodded encouragingly. Finally, in a barely audible voice, Handy said, Thanks, kiss Dad. The silence that followed was broken only by the soft sound of Claire's and Philippe's tears, both deeply moved by the moment. As the big day approached, the Laurent mansion was transformed. Flowers filled every room. The scent of cakes and pastries drifted through the air, and laughter and music echoed in the halls. Claire, adjusting her simple yet elegant wedding dress, reflected on the journey that had led them here. Every challenge, every tear shed, had paved the way for this moment. A gentle knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. It was Thomas, looking adorable in his little suit. Mommy? He called hesitantly. Can I talk to you? Of course, our sweetheart, Claire replied, pulling him close. Thomas took a deep breath as if gathering courage. I wanted to thank you. Thank me for what, my love? For giving us a dad, he said, his voice choked with emotion. I know it wasn't easy for you, but I'm glad we're all together now. Claire felt tears threaten her carefully applied makeup. She hugged Thomas tightly, amazed by her son's maturity and sensitivity. Oh, Thomas, she whispered, you three are the best thing that ever happened to me. And now with Philippe, our family is complete. Outside, guests began to gather in the beautifully decorated garden. Philippe, nervous but radiant, waited at the makeshift altar. When the music started and Claire appeared, flanked by her 3 children, there wasn't a dry eye in the ceremony. This was more than a wedding. It was the celebration of a family that had overcome immense obstacles to be together. As they exchanged vows, Claire and Philippe made promises not only to each other, but also to the 3 children who were now, in every meaningful way, both of theirs. I promise, Philippe said, looking at each of the triplets, not only to be a husband to your mother, but a father to all of you. I will love, protect, and guide you, always. As the sun set over the celebration, casting a golden glow on the new Laurent family, Claire couldn't help but think how fate works in mysterious ways. What began as a night of despair not long ago had turned into the start of a life filled with love, hope, and infinite possibilities. The future, with all its challenges and joys, lay ahead, and they would face it together, as a family. Christmas morning dawned over the Laurent mansion exactly 1 year after Claire and Philippe's fateful reunion. The air was filled with anticipation and joy as the house buzzed with the final preparations for the wedding. Claire stood before the mirror in her room, adjusting the delicate veil in her hair. Her reflection showed not only a radiant bride, but a woman transformed by the love and trials of the past year. A sudden flashback took her back to that cold Christmas Eve, when, desperate and hopeless, she had begged Philippe for help. Who could have imagined that this moment of vulnerability would be the catalyst for such an extraordinary journey? In the next room, Philippe helped Thomas with his bow tie, his heart overflowing with paternal love. He remembered the moment, months ago, when Thomas first called him Dad, a gift more precious than any other. Are you nervous, Dad? Thomas asked, his eyes shining with excitement. Philippe smiled, gently ruffling the boy's hair. A little, but it's the good kind of nervous. Downstairs, the garden had been transformed into a fairy tale setting. Twinkling lights hung from the trees, blending with the gentle snowfall. A small altar, adorned with white and red flowers, awaited the bride and groom. When the music began, all eyes turned toward the garden's entrance. Marie and Sophie, dressed in white tutus and flower crowns, danced down the aisle, scattering petals. Thomas followed, proudly carrying the rings. Then Claire appeared. Her simple yet elegant dress shimmered under the soft winter light. Philippe, waiting at the altar, felt his heart stop for a moment. It was as if he were seeing her for the first time again, falling in love once more. The ceremony was intimate and deeply personal. Claire and Philippe exchanged vows that promised not only eternal love to each other, but also to the 3 children who were now an integral part of their lives. "Claire," Philippe began, his voice thick with emotion, "1 year ago, fate brought us together in a way neither of us could have imagined. Since that moment, every day has been a journey of rediscovery, forgiveness, and growing love. I promise to honor not just you, but also Thomas, Marie, and Sophie, with every breath I take." Claire, tears shining in her eyes, replied, "Philippe, you not only restored my hope, but gave our children the home and love they always deserved. I promise to face every challenge by your side, celebrate every joy, and build a future filled with love and understanding." When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the garden exploded in applause and cheers. The children ran to embrace the newlyweds, forming a group hug that perfectly symbolized their new family unity. The reception that followed was a warm blend of old and new friends. Philippe's colleagues mingled easily with Claire's former neighbors. Rose, beaming with happiness, circulated among the guests, proud of her role in bringing this family together. In the midst of the celebration, Philippe called for everyone's attention for a special announcement. "Today we don't just celebrate our marriage," he said, drawing the children close, "but also the officialization of our family. I'm delighted to announce that this morning, the adoption process for Thomas, Marie, and Sophie was finalized. They are now legally and lovingly Lawrence." The news was met with another wave of applause and congratulations. Claire, emotional, watched as Philippe danced with each of the triplets. Seeing the man she loved laugh and spin with their children was a dream she never dared to have. When it was her turn to present a surprise, Claire sat down at the piano in the corner of the room. Her fingers danced over the keys, playing a melody she had composed especially for the occasion. It was a piece that spoke of loss, reunion, and above all, hope. Everyone present understood that this moment symbolized not only Claire's rebirth as a musician, but also as a person. As the night wore on, and the guests began to depart, the new Laurent family gathered on the terrace, gazing at the bright Christmas stars shining in the clear winter sky. "Look," Sophie exclaimed, pointing at a shooting star. "Make a wish," Claire whispered, pulling the children close. Philippe smiled, knowing his greatest wish had already come true. He stepped away for a moment and returned with a small box in his hands. "Claire," he said softly, "I have one more gift for you." He opened the box to reveal the keys to the red Ferrari. Claire gasped, immediately recognizing their significance. "Philippe, this car brought us together twice," he explained. "First, when we were young and full of dreams, and then that Christmas Eve, when fate gave us a second chance. Now, it symbolizes our journey, our past, and our future." Claire took the keys, feeling the weight of everything they represented. "Thank you," she whispered, kissing him softly. The children, exhausted by the day's emotions, began dozing off in their parents' arms. Claire and Philippe carried them inside, tucking them gently into their beds. Back on the terrace, the couple embraced, contemplating the future that lay before them. "What are you thinking?" Philippe asked, noticing the thoughtful look on Claire's face. "About how we can give back all this happiness," she replied. "Maybe expand our philanthropic efforts, help other families going through hardship." Philippe smiled, once again amazed by his wife's generous heart. "I think it's a wonderful idea. We can start planning after the new year." As the night deepened, snow began to fall more heavily, covering everything with a pure white mantle. From the window, They could see the red Ferrari parked in front of the mansion, a vivid contrast against the snow, a symbol of their extraordinary journey. Claire and Philippe remained wrapped in each other's arms, watching the scene. The mansion, once a symbol of separation and pain, now glowed warmly, a true home full of love and promises for the future. "Merry Christmas, my love," Philippe whispered, kissing Claire's forehead. "Merry Christmas," she replied, her heart overflowing with gratitude and love. And so, as the clock marked the arrival of a new day, the Laurent family, Philippe, Claire, Thomas, Marie, and Sophie, slept peacefully, united by love, strengthened by the trials of the past, and hopeful for the future they would build together. The snow-covered red Ferrari stood as a silent sentinel, witness to a love that had overcome all obstacles and found its way back home.